Number 10. Play-Doh was wallpaper cleaner. But the real story is even weirder. Play-Doh, the colorful, squishy childhood icon of don't mash it into the carpet, was never meant to be a toy. It was supposed to clean soot off wallpaper. Yes, wallpaper. Because apparently in the 1930s, your walls were basically ashtrays wearing floral dresses. A Cincinnati-based soap company called Kutol created this doughy cleaner to combat the coal dust that coated every respectable wall back then. It was just a pliable blob that absorbed grime, very sexy. But then people stopped using coal to heat their homes. Go figure. And the product was on the verge of extinction. Enter a preschool teacher. She noticed the dough worked great for kids' craft time and didn't smell like regret in old fireplaces. So the company rebranded it, dyed it, perfumed it, and boom, Play-Doh was born. From wallpaper cleaner to the backbone of every kindergarten art disaster. Now it's sold in over 100 countries, and every parent has at some point cursed its existence after kneeling on a bright green lump embedded into the carpet. Evolution at its finest. Number 9. The Slinky was an engineering fail. Imagine trying to build something useful and accidentally inventing the toy equivalent of a spring having an existential crisis. That's the Slinky. In 1943, a naval engineer named Richard James was trying to develop stabilizers for ship equipment because nothing says defense innovation like jiggly coils. He dropped one of his metal tension springs and it performed an elegant series of somersaults off a shelf. Most people would go, oops, and pick it up. Richard stared at it like he had just witnessed the second coming in metallic form. His wife, Betty, named it Slinky because the word sounded fun and vaguely bendy. They demonstrated it in department stores, and kids lost their tiny minds watching it walk downstairs like a hyperactive worm. Boom, 400 million units sold. Fun fact, the original inventor eventually joined a religious cult and vanished into the jungle, leaving Betty to run the company. And she crushed it. So yeah, the Slinky was invented by accident, survived a spiritual crisis, and outlived its creator. Talk about a plot twist. Number 8. Microwave ovens were a snack attack. You know that thing in your kitchen that turns frozen sadness into edible regret? It exists because of a candy bar. Percy Spencer, an engineer at Raytheon, was working with magnetrons, the tech behind radar systems. One day, he stood too close to the equipment and noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket melted. First of all, ew. Second of all, he realized something magical. Radar beams could cook stuff. Naturally, he grabbed some popcorn kernels and just blasted them with science. Pop! He had invented the microwave. He later cooked an egg, which promptly exploded in some poor coworker's face. That's progress. Raytheon then developed the first commercial microwave, which was the size of a small fridge and cost more than a used car. It took decades before they got small enough to fit in your kitchen and make your burrito scalding on the outside and still frozen in the middle. Nature's cruel joke. And all because one man didn't eat his candy bar fast enough. Thanks, Percy. Number 7. Vaseline was for burned miners. Let's take a moment to appreciate that the goopy, slippery stuff you smear on dry lips and cracked heels was originally a weird obsession of a man watching oil workers rub themselves. In the 1800s, a young chemist named Robert Chesbrough, yes, that's a name and not a sneeze, noticed that oil rig workers would smear this gunky residue, called rod wax, onto their burns and cuts. It helped them heal, probably because it sealed the skin like a greasy second chance at life. Instead of doing the same thing and backing away slowly, Chesbrough became obsessed. He refined the gunk into a jelly-like substance, tested it on himself by burning his skin with acid and fire, as you do, and then slathered it on like barbecue sauce. Spoiler, he didn't die. In fact, he lived a very long life, allegedly eating a spoonful of Vaseline every day like it was yogurt for the soul. The stuff took off. People used it for everything: cuts, dry skin, diaper rash, and probably as a sandwich spread during desperate times. Today, it's in medicine cabinets worldwide, still basically glorified oil rig residue, but hey, it works. Number 6. Safety glass was a clumsy chemist's gift. Ah yes, glass, nature's reminder that beauty is fragile and also extremely stabby when broken. But safety glass? That glorious material in your car windshield that cracks like a spiderweb instead of turning into face shrapnel? It was discovered by total accident. In 1903, a French chemist named Edouard Benedictus, clearly someone's Hogwarts alias, knocked over a glass flask in his lab. The flask broke, but didn't shatter. Why? Because it had been coated with a thin layer of cellulose nitrate, a plasticky film used in photography. Apparently he'd been too lazy to wash it properly, so basically, messy science saved lives. Instead of brushing it off and moving on with his day like the rest of us would, Benedictus had a eureka moment. He realized this sticky film kept the glass from breaking into murder shards. He patented the idea, and thus safety glass was born, after a little help from the auto industry and people realizing that flying through windshields was a bad time. So yes, we owe modern car safety to a man who didn't clean his glassware. Science. Number 5. Post-it notes were a failed superglue. You know that weirdly satisfying moment when you stick a post-it to your forehead to remember something? You're benefiting from one of history's best product flops. In the 1960s, Spencer Silver, a chemist at 3M, was trying to create a mega-strong adhesive, basically industrial Velcro on steroids, but instead, he ended up with a weird, low-tack glue that barely stuck to anything. It was like clingy, but in a, I promise I'll let go eventually kind of way. He pitched it to his team. They politely said, "Cool, but what is this even for?" and moved on. For years. Then one day his colleague Art Fry, amazing name, sounds like a breakfast superhero, got annoyed that his bookmark kept falling out of his church hymnal. He remembered Silver's underachieving glue, slapped it on a piece of paper and bam, reusable sticky notes. Praise be. 3M launched Post-it notes in 1980, and now they're in every office, every high school locker, and probably orbiting in space. So yeah, your failed glue made us all slightly more organized. That's some poetic irony. Number 4. X-rays were a glitch in the lab. Imagine messing around with electricity in a dark room and accidentally discovering the ability to see through human flesh. That's basically what happened to Wilhelm Röntgen in 1895. He was experimenting with cathode rays and covered a tube in black cardboard, because that's obviously the gold standard of radiation shielding. Then he noticed a strange glow on a nearby fluorescent screen. The rays were passing right through the cardboard like, no thanks, and lighting up stuff across the room, including, eventually, his wife's hand. He took the first human X-ray image ever, her hand bones looking like a creepy Halloween decoration. She reportedly said, "I have seen my death," which is both melodramatic and like, yeah, fair enough. The scientific community lost its collective mind. X-rays were the hot new party trick, used in everything from shoe stores to carnival attractions. Yep, people literally X-rayed their feet to see if their shoes fit, because nothing screams comfort like mild radiation to the toes. So, the next time you get an X-ray at the dentist and feel like a radioactive sandwich under that heavy lead bib, thank Wilhelm and his glowing wife hand. Number 3. Pacemakers were for roast beef. Here's a story that begins with meat and ends with keeping Grandpa alive. In 1941, an engineer named John Hops was trying to use radio frequencies to restore body temperature in hypothermia patients. Basically, he was attempting to cook people back to life. During his experiments, yes, the ones involving electrical currents and meat analogs, he discovered that electrical pulses could stimulate the heart to beat. And just like that, a sparkly new idea was born. Maybe we could keep hearts ticking with a small electric device. The first actual pacemaker was the size of a toaster and had to be wheeled around like a battery-powered pet, but it worked. And later versions shrank down to fit inside the body, thanks to better materials, microcircuits, and probably a small miracle or two. So yeah, the thing keeping millions of hearts beating today was indirectly inspired by trying to heat up roast beef with science. Meat, it brings us together. Number 2, anesthesia was a party drug. Let's talk about one of humanity's greatest inventions, not feeling anything while a stranger slices you open. Then along came nitrous oxide and ether, gases that made you loopy and, more importantly, unconscious. But here's the twist. People were already using them for fun. In the 1800s, wealthy partygoers in Europe and America would huff nitrous oxide at laughing gas parties, stumble around, and giggle like toddlers on espresso. One day, a dentist at one of these parties noticed a guy bash his shin and not even flinch. Brain. Hold up. Soon after, dentists and surgeons started using ether and nitrous oxide to knock people out. In 1846, the first public surgical demonstration under anesthesia took place in Boston. The patient felt nothing. The crowd lost their minds. Medicine leveled up like it just found a rare item in a dungeon. So yes, your pain-free root canal, brought to you by rich people getting high at dinner parties. History is wild. Number 1, penicillin came from filthy dishes. You've probably heard the story, but let's be real. It never gets less absurd. The most important medical breakthrough in human history happened because Alexander Fleming was bad at cleaning up after himself. In 1928, Fleming, a Scottish bacteriologist with questionable lab hygiene, went on vacation and left a stack of dirty petri dishes out in the open. When he got back, one dish had grown mold, not exactly rare in science labs, or forgotten lasagna pans. But here's the kicker. This particular mold was murdering the surrounding bacteria like it was auditioning for CSI, Petri dish. The mold was Penicillium notatum, and it was producing something that wiped out the staph bacteria in the dish. Fleming stared at it and probably thought, huh, neat, because that's how scientific revolutions always begin. He wrote up his findings, everyone politely nodded, and then did absolutely nothing for over a decade. It wasn't until World War II that researchers picked it back up, figuring out how to mass-produce it and save millions of lives. So yes, the thing that turned medicine into actual magic came from a moldy dish and a wildly procrastinating scientist. The moral of the story? Never clean anything. You might accidentally invent the cure for disease.